So hello and welcome, my name is Carl and this is Just the Way It Is, and today is episode 8 in our series all about the R1250GS. So what are we looking at today? Well, today we're talking about accessories, and in particular, can we get accessories on a budget but still maintaining good value and good quality products? Now this for me all started way back in episode 6 when I said that I was going to get some accessories and try and add some colour, a little bit of bling to the GS, because now the bike's mine to make it unique and special to me. I've done a similar sort of thing with the Multistrada. That took a long period of time to find all the individual things that I liked and added them to that bike. So I've started the process with the GS. Now, when I made my list a couple of weeks ago, well actually 4 weeks ago, of what I would like to add, by the time I got to the bottom of the list, I was shocked how much money I would need to spend to do all the things that I wanted. Now, for that list, I went to all the top manufacturers. I went to BMW, looked at their accessory catalogue, which is extensive. I looked at the 719 options that they have. They have some beautiful parts, beautiful machine parts, but they're jolly expensive. And then there's a whole range of other places. I went to Wunderlich. They supply here in Germany, all over Europe and in the US. Some of their stuff is fabulous. And then SW Motec, R&G, I mean, the list just goes on. There are some very good manufacturers of accessories for our motorbikes, but the list was quite expensive. So I decided it would be really interesting to set myself the task of, can I reduce that cost by half? Can I wipe off 50% of that cost? And when I looked at how much that would be, that is a substantial saving. That's enough money for you to take your motorbike and go on holiday. Or if you've got a family, it's enough money to take your family away at the very least to a big city, London, Berlin, Munich, and go away for a very nice weekend, bed and breakfast overnight, nice meals out, perhaps go to the theatre, or you can take your family on holiday for a week. There really is quite a bit of saving to be made if you look carefully and you spend time. So we've got a total of 17 accessories. We've got 9 across the bottom of the bike. We've got 8 across the top of the bike. Some of the accessories I've already fitted, and I had to fit them very early on in the process. While I had the bike, a bit of scratch protection on different parts of the bike, because I didn't want to damage the bike too much before I had to give it back, but that all changed, and you'll find that in one of the earlier episodes. So some of the parts are already fitted. So when I get to those, I'm going to explain why I fitted them and how much they've cost. So as we go through, we're going to compare full price, top brand parts and the solutions that I've found. So starting at the rear of the bike, we've got quite a few things that we can cover here in this section. So the first one is on the rear axle, protecting that drive unit, you can buy an additional crash protector. I'm not sure if these are fully necessary if you're going to fit also one of these crash mushrooms. I'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, let's talk about this. Now, there are manufacturers that do make equivalents to this. Wunderlich do make a wonderful one. It's a black and silver. It's beautifully machined, but it's going to cost you 119 euros. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, my task was to find at least 50% off of these prices and see if I could find something that worked for me. It really wasn't very expensive. I had to wait for it 4 weeks for it to come from China, but actually it's not bad. So I'm going to fit it and show you what it looks like, but I think I'm definitely not going to tour with it on there. I think I might go to bike meets with it on because it looks quite pretty. But in terms of leaving it on there full time, it's too heavy, it weighs too much, I'm not going to keep it on there. But for 20 odd euros, I thought it was worth a try. These crash bobbins or crash protectors, all of the manufacturers, all of the big companies like Wunderlich, SW Motec, R&G, they make their own versions of this. But it's going to cost you $50, £50, 50 euros for one of these, which seems quite excessive to me. This I actually managed to pick up off of Amazon. I put prices up about 24 euros for this. I had to wait a couple of weeks for it to arrive, but actually the quality of this particular one is actually quite good. And I would think it rivals all of the other manufacturers in terms of its fit and finish. I don't think you're going to lose any quality by fitting something like this. So let's move on. So front axle crash protection or axle sliders. There's quite a lot of manufacturers that make these for our motorbikes, and the one that I particularly liked and I thought I'd like to fit was by the company SW Motec. I'll put a part number up so you can go and have a look for yourself. They're €65, which seemed to be about the average price for that type of axle slider from some of the top brands. So finding a replacement wasn't too difficult. I got this particular one from Amazon. I'll put some links and some names up so you know what I've bought. The quality's okay. It's nicely finished. It looks quite nice. It's got a bit of red detailing on there. It comes with the nut that you need to replace from the original one on the bike, because the original GS front wheel axle nut is not hollow, and you need to be able to pass this mounting tube all the way through. So it comes with everything you need. The quality is acceptable. I think it looks quite nice. It's not the same quality, for example, as if you look at the Rizoma one that I've got fitted to my Multistrada. That really is beautifully finished, and that was probably worth the €65 I spent for it. But obviously we're trying to save at least half with this project, so this isn't too bad. I'll show you some pictures of all of these parts fitted as we go along. So on the rear, on the grab handles, you can see I've also added some decals. These are, I think they call them 3D gel, and they're actually quite good. My wife says it actually gives quite a bit of extra grip, because they're not slippy and smooth like the metal is underneath, and they do a really good job of helping you hold tight on the back. So I think they were €22, 23 euros. I'll put a price up and I'll put some links up for all these parts. They weren't very expensive, and I actually think they look quite nice. You can get them in different colours, so you can match it to your bike. These particular ones were meant for the triple black, but actually I thought they matched the frame and the grab handles quite nicely. So in one of our earlier episodes, I talked about adding some bling, adding some colour, especially to the cockpit area, which is quite black. Now, when I started my wish list, on the top of my wish list was some nice 719 accessories from BMW Direct, but they are jolly expensive. They start at €177. Currently, when I looked this morning, there are 4 options. There's a light silver, there's like a titanium grey, there's a black and silver, and then there's a full black one, and they look superb, and I've seen them in the showroom fitted to their bikes. They look stunning. They're really, really nice. But for this project, trying to find things that are at least half price, there was no way I was going to spend that kind of money. Now, these actually came from eBay. Yes, they're from China. They're by a company called Mad Moto. I'll do some close-ups of these in a moment so you can have a look. I think they look quite nice. They're a red and a black. I think they'll match in with the rest of the colour of the bike, but we'll have a good look at these when I mount them later on, and you can see what they look like mounted, and I'll tell you what I think of them in terms of their engineering and their sizes. Do they do the job they're supposed to do, and do all the seals and gaskets work as they should do? So I'm looking forward to fitting those, because they were very, very cheap at 24, 25 euros. One other thing that I decided to get, and again, this is another area where you can save quite a bit of money. If any of you got a GS, you know there is no storage facility on them. It is really quite poor. These are very expensive bikes, and there's nowhere to store the things you need to take with you. Especially if you've got the heated seat options, there really is nowhere to put anything. There's no cubby holes up the front, there's no storage at the back. It's quite poor. So you're going to need to add some way to add some of the things that you want to carry with you when you go on tour. So these bags, they were really quite inexpensive. That you can spend 60, 70 euros on these types of bags, but I think I only paid, I think it was 18 euros for the pair of bags. It took some time to come from China. Again, these are Chinese made. I'll mount them and show you what they look like. I'll put some tools in and I'll do some proper testing and let you know what they're like. So continuing with the theme of storage, one of the things I got very, very early on are one of these Q bags that sit behind the standard frame. So this is the standard frame that you would mount your Vario top box to. And here in Germany, or if throughout Europe, it is a legal requirement to carry safety vest. So if there's just you riding the bike, you need one. If there's you and a passenger, you need to keep 2. And then there's other basic things that we really should as motorcyclists carry, like a tyre repair kit. So I've managed to get all of that inside this little tiny Q bag. I'll put some pictures up. There are quite a few manufacturers, including BMW, that make these. I think BMWs are 60 euros. There are a couple of other manufacturers. I'll put some names and some links up, and they're 50 euros. But Q bag, these are available on Amazon. They're effectively exactly the same thing, No, they're not waterproof, so everything inside there is inside a waterproof seal bag, just to make sure. And I think I paid 16 euros for this. So there's quite a saving with this type of accessory, and that combined with these other small tool bags that I just showed you, should provide me with a little bit of extra storage space. So that is quite good value for money. So what are we going to look at next? Another item that was on my original wish list that I've already fitted, that I fitted very early on in the process, was bar risers. And this is one area where I'm not prepared to compromise and fit parts from China. The machine tolerances have to be very, very accurate. You're putting quite a lot of pressure on your bars, and if the machining is not absolutely perfect, you will create stress fractures to your bars, which you might not notice. It may take several thousand kilometers and miles for those bars to be moving around, but it will put stress and eventually lead to a failure if the machining and the tolerances aren't absolutely spot on. So this is an area where I'm not going to compromise, because it's the main control for the bike. Now there are lots of different manufacturers. Wunderlich makes some lovely ones. I decided to go with a German company called Voigt. No, I'm not sponsored by them, but they do make some really lovely, beautifully machined parts. I'll do a close-up video so you can have a look. These come up 30 millimeters and come back 24. Now, in an ideal world, I didn't want to go up. All I really wanted to do was bring the bars at the same height, that's the standard height, and bring them back towards the rider. That really is the riding triangle that I prefer in terms of dynamics. But I couldn't find anyone that actually makes anything that will do that. So what I looked for was the lowest amount of rise and a good bit, about an inch, which was actually 24 millimeters, of coming back towards the rider. So it was a bit of a compromise for me. What I've ended up doing, when I first started riding the bike, I had the seat in the 850 millimeter low position. And then very quickly I realized that although I'd got the bars in terms of their closeness to me just about perfect, but by going up 30 millimeters, I also needed to change the seat height from the standard low 850 up to the 870, so both items have come up, and it sort of worked for me. My feet aren't completely flat on the floor now. I've got the kind of balls of my feet on the floor. I'm 6 foot tall, which is fine, and at traffic lights I just have to slide off ever so slightly to one side to get my foot completely flat on the floor. But in terms of the riding triangle, I'm very pleased. What I found, and I think a couple of you have also found a similar thing, when you take the bars up and back a bit, your shoulders ever so slightly go up, and after a long distance you end up with shoulder pain because your shoulders have just come up this little bit, which is a very strange feeling. So by going up here and making the decision to come up 20 millimeters with the adjustment of the seat, I've actually got rid of that shoulder movement, and it's much more comfortable over long distances. So that's the bar risers. And the next thing we need to look at, if we look at the axle here, I've already got a sticker covering the axle. So why did I do that? Because I did this really early on in the process. At the end of the first week, I had scratches across here from my boot. So let me just explain why I went for this particular option. Now, normally, if you're riding normally, your foot is probably going to sit centrally on the peg and it's not going to scrape that axle. But because of the way that I ride, and I like to move my body weight around, especially when I get to my favorite bends, I want to be able to put weight on the inside of the peg with the ball of my foot to help weight transfer. So that involves moving my foot to here, and then my heel rubs against that axle. So what I found after just the first week of riding the bike, I'd scraped quite a lot of paint off this one section. So I decided very early on to put a sticker on there and to stop that happening. They do make different types of these stickers. There's lots of different color options, but most importantly, you can either get a gloss finish one, or you can get, as I've chosen, a kind of a 3D textured. It's almost like a carbon weave effect on there, and it's really quite nice. Now, why I've chose that is that with that textured surface, any rubbing from your boot is not going to show up in terms of scratches. It's not going to scratch your sticker, and actually, considering I've done 2,500 kilometers with that sticker on there, with the type of riding I do, moving around, moving my boots around, there are no marks. I've been really impressed. 30 euros, that's all they cost. There's a whole range of color options. Go to their website and have a look. So, moving on. So when I originally finished editing this video, it was something like 45 minutes long. So I've had to chop it into 2 just to make things a lot easier, and YouTube keep telling me no one watches long videos anymore. So looking at the top, we've got the Madmoto clutch and brake fluid reservoirs and the bar risers, both of which I'm really pleased with the quality of. They're very good. On the bottom here we can see the front axle slider, another great saving, and this little tiny engine housing protection plate that came from AliExpress. On the front of the bike is the headlight protector, and as we move around we can see the BMW lower crash bars. I'm actually really pleased with them. They do actually look quite smart. I will still probably remove them when I come back from tour, but for going to Norway it's going to give me that peace of mind I was looking for. So on the rear you can see the red hub protector. They just look actually lovely. I will remove them, they are too heavy, but they're fine for now. The tool bags are very good. For the price they hold a lot of gear. They're not waterproof, but for the tools I want to carry they're going to do a great job. And then looking at the other side on the hub protector, the red part and the sticker protecting the axle tube. So bearing in mind I've had to chop this video down, this is part 1. Part 2 will come in a few days' time, and I will add the link on the screen where it currently says link will be added here in a couple of days. So if you just give me a few days, I will upload part 2. Okay, speak to you very soon. Thank you.